now in today's era, what would you do that would have sped up the process for Shazam?
Well, I wouldn't have tried to build a search engine from the ground up. We just outsource it to Amazon now. Yeah, I mean, things would have been a lot easier because really, the app, what you see in the app is just a front end to an entire experience, and most of the complexity and really heavy lifting of Shazam is behind the app layer. So what we built behind, well, it wasn't even an app at the beginning. It was actually a voice phone call and a text message, but it was obviously what's called a Beowulf cluster PC, similar to what Google built, stacks of PCs in which and within the RAMs we stored the fingerprints of all the music. We built this huge database of all the music, constantly adding all the latest releases every week, and then just the end-to-end experience. So all that stuff would have been literally 100 times easier if we had started the company a few years ago instead of in 2000, and we would have been able to then put our resources into different things. So what those different things are, I would say, comes back to that piece of advice I gave earlier to all entrepreneurs, which is go find that low-hanging fruit revenue. What can you build that will start bringing in revenue right away, will start paying the bills? A lot of people don't realize that in the early days of Google, the revenue was a big check from Yahoo each year because they were running search for Yahoo. And that paid the bills while they built that business to what we now know as Google. So that type of thinking, I think, is the stuff I would have put more resources into.
Thank you, Brian. One more question, ladies and gentlemen. One more. Miles Grant. Where are you in the world, Miles?
I am in Birmingham in the UK, brother.
Give it up for the UK, ladies and gentlemen.
My question is, what is going on in your mind when you are thinking of this incredible, my jaw dropped. When you told me this new startup, the swimming pools, my jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, what is going on in your mind? What's the step behind that allows you to come up with this thinking to get to that stage where you come up with that idea? Because it's just phenomenal. My jaw dropped.
You mean because nobody else had done it? There was no way to distribute it?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, exactly.
So, by the way, my father did his university degree and PhD in Birmingham University. So you're in his.
Wow.
He's British.
Amazing.
So I find that the ideation process is it's more of an art than a science. But I do think that we all can sit here and come up with ideas, right? You can brainstorm ideas, and sometimes you just stumble across ideas. Sometimes it's a combination of things where you experience something. Like in my case, my son was growing up as a toddler with his mom, and there was a pool there, and I thought, oh my gosh, like that pool. You can think of it like a fire pit. That's a real risk, and so it made me very aware of the real. Something that needs to be solved, because I realize as a parent, it's hard. You can build fences and try to keep an eye on them all the time, but you don't know if you can have a foolproof solution. So that was inspiration. But there were also aspects where I thought, I believe as an entrepreneur, sometimes when you conquer a problem that's really hard, you're giving yourself an advantage because many other entrepreneurs or even large companies are not going to do a very good job of that. And you have the advantage of doing it as well as you possibly can. And I kind of thought, part of solving this problem is that you're working with the infrastructure of an existing pool. There's a pool in the ground with concrete all around it and pool equipment off to the side. How are you going to work within that environment and introduce this new thing that needs consistent power and so on, and how are you going to implement it and create a user experience that doesn't involve jackhammering concrete all around the pool and spending $100,000 to install something. So I liked those challenges, the hardware aspects of this idea. So I guess in a nutshell, what I would say is that as you kind of navigate through different ideas, I think what I like to do is to think about these kind of certain aspects of it. So what's doable, what hasn't been done, and what can I do much better? What could use brand new approaches and my unique thinking? I often think that the secret weapon that we all have as business people is judgment, right? Because we all have resumes and experience and contacts and things like that, but those are kind of controlled and measured by other people. But your own judgment, you have 100% control of that. That's just all you. And your judgment is that secret thing that ultimately leads to that success outcome years later. And people later go, oh, wow, he was right. He had this non-consensus insight that we just didn't see. And if you look at so many successful startups, whether it's Airbnb or Google or Skype or anything, there's a non-consensus insight they had. It was ultimately their very good judgment and knowing what the right thing to do is. So as you go through that ideation process, it's applying your judgment to think about what are the good ideas, what are the ones that really have legs, and almost like playing out in your mind, whether this is going to be, that has the potential to be a successful business. And that applied for this drowning thing. I felt like this is something that needs to exist. It needs to be affordable. It needs to be something that people can put in existing pools and people can feel safe. And we need to be able to save lives, even if a parent is just, their attention is distracted and they're running to get lemonade for a few minutes. We need to be able to save lives in those situations.
What's your timeline on this? I'm curious.
Sorry?
What's your timeline on this product? Do you have any sense?
This is going to be a multi-year project.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Oh yeah, it's going to. I mean, hardware alone, they say, is hard, and it takes a long time. Yeah. I'm not at the stage of actual hardware development, but yeah, it's going to be a long-term project to do it well.
And also, I would add, Miles, as he said earlier, it's also having enough passion behind your judgment, because without that passion, you don't have enough fuel to push through all those years when it's lean and nothing's working is another one. Thank you for your question, Miles. Let's do one more. By the way, Tracy Evans, she's so fired up in her room there, the fire alarm went off. She's joining in her Jeep while the fire department does their thing. Nice job, Tracy Evans. She's not missing a word you're going to say. Let's go with one more. Room 11, Team 11 here with Barbara. Give it up for Barbara. Barbara, where are you in the world?
I'm in Vienna.
What's your question?
Chris, you showed the picture with all these CDs, and I thought that's such a huge task. So how did you start to go for it? Did you buy the CDs? Or what did you do? I think you always be in front of such a huge task and you don't get started.
So the 1.5 million or 1.7 million songs, in other words, did you go buy all these CDs she's saying?
Yeah.
Or how'd you do it?
Yeah, so this is actually, so I like to talk about this concept I call creative persistence. Right?
Yes.
And so it's because all entrepreneurs, we all have to be persistent.
Right.
But I think what's really important is this kind of this bringing them together, creative persistence, where you're being persistent, but you're also really thinking outside the box and thinking of unique ways to solve a problem. I saw this go on a lot at Google and Dropbox when they solved so many